question is kind of like two-part. And the first one is really around, I guess, like the narrative and the messaging. So I come from Nigeria, and sometimes, like, from the rest of the world's perspective, the media, the narrative of like Africa is not exactly what we would like it to be, what exactly is happening. So I think my first question is, right, from your perspective, how important is it for you that through the network and even through your role in policy, that the right narrative about India is being translated, right messaging about the country and the nation is being translated both internally but even globally. And then my second question just more around like building a sustainable business. So you're at a point you've built your businesses to the point where you can also do some other more important things to you right now, which is like policy and politics. What is your advice for building a business that's sustainable, where you can also go on future to do other things that are important?
So I'll address. I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
Tolu. Oh yeah, my name is Tolu, and I'm a second
Tolu.
year MBA. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll take the first one. So it is very important for getting the Indian perspective out. You know, when I was talking about what is India's position globally now and how India is evolving and changes, it's very important to have your story told and have your perspective told. Like it is very important for that to happen in Africa as well. So the problem is that media, wherever it is from, always has a narrative and a perspective from where they're coming out of. So obviously, you know, there are reasons for them to say that. But it is extremely important for us to be heard. I'll give you an example. My managing editor, Rishabh, who you guys just met recently, during the G20 summit, which recently happened in Delhi, and that is the power of media, of how an Indian entity impacts the world stage. You know, there was an issue on bilateral with Canada, and NewsX Network was the first one to start, put out the Indian perspective and say it and call it out how it is, and put out our feelings the way we see it, the way it should be seen. And within 24 hours, it had more than 10 million hits on X, and it was trending throughout North America. It was on the timeline of the liberals, and some content which was generated out of India had a global impact to the size and scale, where I think, if I'm not wrong, we had more than 1 million comments on those videos all put together in a span of a few days. So it is extremely important to put out a story. It is extremely important to get our perspective out there. And it doesn't really matter, an Al Jazeera is headquartered out of Doha, or CNN is headquartered out of Atlanta, or ITV Network is headquartered out of Delhi. It doesn't really matter where you are physically based now. That is the digital transformation, in that sense, transcends these physical boundaries. And that is a big power. And I think every entity, especially like ours in India, has and should put out their perspective, because there's no one else who's going to do it. Sorry, what was the second question? I forgot that.
It's really around like building
on a sustainable business. So I'll just answer that as well. I very often say this to my teams over here, that today the biggest threat in media is by individual content creators. It is not by AI only. So, you have to think like individual content creators. And somewhere or the other, frugality is the right mantra over there. Because when a individual or a couple of individuals get together and start content creation, which goes really catches people's imagination and goes viral and becomes a big hit, like I spoke about Mr. Beast right now. You have to understand that even large companies need to think like that. Because it's like Jack Ma, very famously used to say that I didn't have money, so we found a way to make money without having money. So it's pretty much that philosophy which needs to be imbibed in new businesses, especially in the media business. You have to think like them, you have to act like them, if you have to beat them at that game. Because you are chasing and they're leading right now.